everyone, welcome back to the Sober Shift, a YouTube channel where we break the stigma of addiction, we share stories of hope, and we celebrate recovery. Today, I'm going to be introducing a guest to my second podcast. Her name is Leah Wright, and she is the founder and executive director of Wake Monarch Academy, which is a recovery high school based in Raleigh, North Carolina, that provides a lifeline to 13-year-olds all the way to 21-year-olds who are still navigating not only recovery, but they're trying to continue their education. Leah's story is deeply inspiring. She's not just a leader in the recovery community, but also a mother whose personal experience with her son's addiction led her to feel called to make a difference. Through her vision and passion, Wake Monarch Academy has become a beacon of hope, offering a unique environment where students can heal, grow, and reclaim their futures. So I'm super excited today that you guys get to hear a little bit about Leah's personal journey, this mission and story behind Wake Monarch Academy, and how it's transforming lives. So get ready for a powerful and heartfelt conversation.
I totally missed when you came for check-in to share your story, how you started a YouTube channel, because I'm sure showed up early, so I missed that. How did you get into like doing this?
Yeah, so like I had the idea of doing it for a long time, right? Because I've always wanted to be of service to people, because people have asked me since I've started this actually, like, oh, like, when are you going to get monetized? What's your goal? It's just a secondary,
Right.
Getting my secondary. Like, my primary objective is to like help others and to like give them another resource in their toolkit or tool belt,
Right.
to be able to follow. Because I know a big part of my recovery, when I was especially first trying to get clean, especially in between meetings, like still trying to have a job, I had a family, and a lot of times I might not be able to make it multiple, because I was going multiple meetings a day.
Right.
Yes, and sometimes wasn't able to hit multiple meetings, and I had a craving or a trigger or something like that. I would just open YouTube up and just type in sobriety testimonials,
Okay.
and I would listen to other addict stories.
Awesome.
And it helped me a lot. And I was thinking about this for a while. And that friend I was talking about, who has his YouTube channel, he said, dude, you just need to do it. Because I was like, he's like, you need to start posting videos.
Just jump right in.
Yeah, this is perfect. And that's how, like, I guess part of my addiction too is perfectionism. So, like, I got to have all the right stuff. I got to, make sure that people know about it. And he was like, dude, you don't need any of that.
Right.
He said, just jump right into it, and it'll take care of itself.
Right. That's awesome.
And I think too, like, I have like type of imposter syndrome sometimes. Like, nobody cares about what I have to say about certain things. He's like, dude, there's so many people out there that would benefit from, hearing other people's stories.
Well, just like you just said you did. You listen to other people's stories.
Is that right? Yeah. So it's click, yeah. And I was like, it's a new year.
Right.
What better time than to
just
jump into it?
Just jump right in.
Exactly right. So my wife's been super supportive. So the first podcast I did with her, because she dealt with all my mess throughout.
Right.
It's an outstanding movie, so
I gotta go watch that now.
Yeah, there you go. Very lucky to have that. But yeah. So like, I guess first, and I'll do an introduction and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What was your early on experience like? Did you have any substance abuse issues growing up, or family members or anything?
Not a single thing. Was completely didn't even know how to recognize it, like had no experience whatsoever.
Okay.
Which is why coming into this and the signs of seeing, with, my son, our son, my son, it was, we didn't recognize. I think back to some of the things that I did because I didn't know and was naive, but at the same time, it's like you don't want to see what's like in front of your eyes,
Blinded by love.
Exactly. And I think back to some of those things. I'm like, Leah, what in the world? But but it helps me be relatable to families that come in, because I know that. I mean, I get, the first time my son's had a rehab, picked him up on his 18th birthday, think he's fixed and life's going to go back to normal and life's going to be great. Little did I know what was ahead, but I've had families say the same thing. So I get what it's like just to start with, with a child and seeing your child just become somebody you don't use.
Yeah, I can't even recognize.
Right.
I remember when I was in my first rehab, and I'll talk about this a little bit in past videos, but my wife, they had a family session where like it was a therapist was on site, and they, it's 4 hours away, so my family, being supportive, and my wife, they drove up there, and I remember we're sitting in the room with the therapist, and my mom asked the question. She was like, "So what happens when he gets out here and if he does relapse? Like, what should we do?" And I remember being like, "Oh my goodness, how did she ask that question? Like I'm fixed. Like this is all. Even myself, I was naive to addiction."
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so you said your son's a big part of this whole story.
He was the main reason behind it. I think as I don't know, you talk about typical teenage behavior. 13, he even talked about, hey, I want to see what marijuana tastes like. And of course I was like, no, like so like out of the blue. No, we're not going, we don't want to do that. And really like that was the end of it. Well then he sure enough followed through with it sometime later, and we talked to him about it. We had consequences in place. I mean, I vividly remember my husband sitting, I was sitting there, and he was on the couch over here, having this long, drawn-out conversation with him, and we adjusted. It's not like we had our, heads in the sand and thought that, okay, we adjusted, typical teenage behavior, kids are going to try things, move on, and little did we know. And my son was diagnosed with ADHD and restraint. So, we were like that impulsiveness, just not thinking ahead, and some other things were kind of used to that behavior. Then as the behavior started to worsen, it was like, there's something more going on. We went to multiple psychiatrists and psychologists trying to there's something else. I mean, we know what ADHD looks like, but there's something else going on there. And, he learned to, manipulate and say what he knew the therapist wanted to hear. And not one ever mentioned to us that there's an addiction problem.
Yeah.
And we're the ones, my husband and I were like, there's something more. Because then you start getting in trouble with the law and it just continued to escalate over the time. And, ultimately we started as marijuana, went to pills to heroin addiction to last time was addiction. So I mean, we do have there's not, I'm going to say a happy ending because, recovery is for a lifetime, but very fortunate. He'll have 3 years next month.
That's amazing.
And he'll be 27 on Saturday.
It's awesome. All that. Yeah. It's just it's one of those things because I know, it's talking about being naive to addiction. I was personally, I thought it was a moral or just something wrong that with me or with people that were addicted. Like, why can't you just restrain yourself?
Right. Just stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. That was kind of my process. I remember vividly sitting at my parents' table one time, and one of my good friends had got caught stealing his parents' credit card, and it's still the statements from the mail.
Right.
It was back before online.
Right.
Dating myself a little bit, and he'd racked up tens of thousands of dollars of charges on his parents' credit card, and I was like, how could a son whose parents have done that, how could you do that? And then I ate my words because about a year later, my dad came to me with a video he had gotten from the gas station of me stealing his credit card. And it kind of came full circle, but so your son went into rehab, and then so how did Wake Monarch Academy come about? Was the jump from there straight to Wake Monarch?
No.
It was there's
No. It was like I said, 18th birthday, thinking life's going to be back to normal, and it was great for a few months. You lived at home, and you ended up finishing his high school diploma on, he was expelled from school, so he finished it online, which was the SCORE program at that time. Now it's SCORE Academy, part of the county public school system. But, finished that and was going to Wake Tech and normal. We thought we're back on track. And then the same behavior started to appear again and sneaking out at night and not following through. I mean, just little things at first, and then you start noticing behavior you never noticed before. And just, we talked about being, naive, is that my husband had dental surgery. And as a parent, when they're toddlers, you're locking up medication and putting the little baby locks on, making sure they can't open it. Here with a teenager, right? You're not thinking about that. And again, not have been around it, right? And so he didn't finish his medication from his dental surgery, didn't think about it. It had been under the bathroom sink for, I don't even know how long. And one night, we were at a friend's house.
Yeah.
And the husband had noticed that a lot of his medication was missing. And there was a couple of other couples there too. And they're like, yeah, it's going to the neighborhood and so, they have their medication. And I'm like, what? And so just like, we better, it won't happen to us, but let's just check when we get home. Didn't think anything about it. Went to check, and like, I knew there was quite a bit left, but we didn't throw away medication, and the bottle was like significantly gone. And my brain did not even go thinking that like it's stolen and was in our home. Yeah. Like, went to my husband, like, did you take all these pills? It seems like he's like, no, I took a few. And I'm like, and went and talked to my son, and then just as absolutely, believable, right? Believable. And I ended up passing it off, thinking my husband took more medication than he thought. Like, it did not even click, because I'm like, well, he's not really, he has had some issues in the past, but like, good now. And I think back to, and of course, years later, I found out, of course, he used it. So, the medications, but that's how naive I was. The behavior worsened considerably.
Yeah.
And went into rehab again and again and again, and would get out, and it just wasn't seeming to click. And I found myself very codependent on him, and that codependency quite severe. Mm-hmm. And he got in trouble with the law, and I remember trying to find help, and we couldn't find any help, because this was prior to 18. I'll back up a little bit. Prior to 18, every time we would call, well, how old is he? Yeah. And I'd say 15, 16. Well, we understand 18 or above. Everybody I would call. And the only one that I found that was help teenagers with addiction was a wilderness program at that time. I'm talking 10 plus years ago in the months. Yeah. Like 25, 30K a month. I'm a teacher, like, we can't afford that. What do we do? And so that's why we just continue to push. And I was started looking at maybe like an addiction like specialist. And so we did that route. But it's still getting in trouble with the law. Again, I'm kind of jumping around all over the place, but prior to 18 was in juvenile jail. I remember trying to find help, and we were working with addiction professional at this time, and he's like, "Look, leave him in jail. Like, let him learn." Oh my God! The first time I ever got a call from jail, the recording. I just heart. Like, I can't believe, like, this grew up in a happy home and family vacations, they dinner together. Like, how can this be happening? And just didn't want to come to deal with it. And so I remember, actually, we were years into it by this time, that he refused to go to rehab. He was still being at home. But our thing was, have a job. You need to hold down a job. Like, still, we're in it, but we're not in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like we're still kind of up here thinking, okay, he has a problem, but we're handling it. We're handling it. We're putting guidelines in place, and he's following it. And then noticed difference in behavior. So
now, was he, when he would get out of rehab and he would continue to relapse, right? Was he talking to you guys about maybe like the reasons why he was relapsing, or was he just kind of being more isolated as the longer the time?
It varied, but again, you're thinking of like Who are you hanging out with?
Yeah, people, places.
Right. And again, being naive, control at 18, 19. I mean, you have guidelines. If you're going to live in our home, that's what you're going to have to follow, right? Kind of deal. But I can't even, we would get to the 90 day. It was either like a week before around 90 days, a week after 90 days, somewhere in that, can't even count how many times there would be RTGs. Right. And working with an addiction professional. And then I remember going to, again, he refused to go to rehab this time. He says, because every time I'm there, there's drugs in there, these bad people in there. I'm not getting anything out of it. And I remember he was on one rehab, he was at Wilmington Treatment Center and walked out, just literally walked out. I can't do it. There's drugs in the air. You need to come pick me up. But I'm thinking, here's my, your baby, but my fun child out on the streets, I'll go pick him up and higher than a fight and came back home. Okay, you don't want to go to rehab. I get it. We're going to find some additional help. So he agreed to do IAP for intensive outpatient.
Yeah, I did that.
And went there, talked to him. He was maybe 18 at the time and gave me permission to talk to the doctor. And she came out and said, he's willing to do IOP and you need recovery too. And I looked at her and I went, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like I don't use. And she goes, no, you need recovery. Addiction is a family disease and you need to find a family support group. And so that was the first time I had it.
Yeah.
No one had ever mentioned to me about that. No idea.
You're focused 100%.
Me? I don't think. So I remember going to my son and saying, Gary's trying to be supportive through everything, right? You do your IOP. The doctor wants me to do this family support group, and we'll do recovery together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, still, I'm not entering to get help for myself. I'm doing it because this is another way of showing my son supporting and that I believe in him and that he can do this, And I remember the first 2 meetings, my best friend actually went with me. My husband didn't go, and my best friend went with me. And I bawled. I couldn't even talk about what was going on. And I remember mom and dad there sharing, their son was in recovery at this time, but sharing about their journey and said that he had showed up at their door on Thanksgiving Day and the sister answered the door and the parents went along to come in and shut the door in his face. And I distinctly remember sitting there in families around this big circle thinking, how can a parent do that? How could you shut on Thanksgiving Day? Don't let every day. But I mean, how could you do that to your child? I mean, I distinctly remember thinking that. Little did I know, years of what again was to come. But as I kept going back, it was the first time that I ever felt that I wasn't alone, right? And that I would hear other families share. That's what my son said. So you start, because even though the journeys are the same, the language can be the same of the manipulation, no matter.
Yeah, it tries to be different. Like this language, you're like, okay, I'm doing a lot of that. I'm a lot of my stories,
right?
Or something.
Exactly. And so, so I began to, I don't know, pay attention and try to take in more, but still trying to support our son. And then here we are back again. Is that the IV story? Like, it's not. He just wasn't ready. I mean, we did Oxford House. I mean, we did everything we could to even think of it. And then we truly found out what he was doing, and it was, by this time, it was heroin.
Yeah, escalated.
It escalated, and so continue to, go to family support, and then, we're sharing, well, he's done this now, and this is where we are. And I remember Rhonda Spence, who leads, visited several family support groups.
Yeah.
But I found my home at the family support group at Healing Transitions.
Okay.
Because that was yet another thing we tried. Oxford House wasn't working, but we'll try, Healing Transitions is a place there yet. It's food, food's good. I mean, this is a nice place. I'll see you, once a week. And that didn't work. 3 times was there. That didn't work. But my home I found with that family support group. And I remember Rhonda looking at me one day, and she said, "Leah, you're going to love your son to death."
Yep.
And I will never ever forget that, because that was a wake up call to me. So, and it was also prior to that, my husband and I, we weren't on the same page.
That's
Like, I mean, all my son needed to say, I'm hungry. I'm like, or I can't do, I'm not going to do this anymore. Like this, like, where are you? I'll come pick you up. And so it caused, we weren't on the same, my husband and I were on the same page, because my husband couldn't be manipulated, because he saw right through it. And, but I get mad. How can you not believe it? I mean, it was, like I said, it's a family disease.
Vividly, I was over at one of my friends' houses, and it was one of my using friends since we were young, playing brickly ball together. I remember the same type of stuff. His mom was going to end up and just do anything for her son. And the dad was just, he had been fed up for a long time. And finally, he told the son, he's like, "This is it. Pack yourself up. I'm dropping you off at the homeless shelter." And, it was just a scene like mom's crying, dragging the son back in, the dad's trying to pick his son up and to put him in the car. And it was, so I've seen that before.
Yeah. Yeah. That I've been there, sobbing, and like ran off to the woods. And so yeah, it took a while to get there. But when she said that comment to me, I started to pay attention, and really started to notice how I was being manipulated, and hearing other families. So his use continued, obviously, because I thought it was loving, right?
Yeah.
But I tell our parents, like, there's a difference, and there's a fine line, right? A difference between what's enabling and what's loving, and trying to figure that out. And I was thinking I'm loving myself.
And just the fear, I know my parents, like, just the fear of speaking to my parents' perspective. And I had a little girl at the time, but I really wasn't putting it together. The amount of guilt that they would have had if they would cut me off, which they eventually, did, but they would have completely cut me off. It's something happened to me, just the guilt that they were.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what parent wants to lose their child? And I mean, I've told the kids here, like, it still is a trigger to me to this day. The doorbell would ring. I immediately go, I'll look, and I go back to thinking like things are good, but one day at a time, even though he's doing well now. But I still, when I hear that doorbell, say immediately, "Sir, please." I mean, yeah, and it's still to this day.
I'll get up and I'll leave the room, and my wife will still be doing it. Because she gets just the flashbacks. Be using the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Unix a lot.
Right. And it may get us stuck, and then she's believing you at that time.
Oh, yeah, I thought I was the smoothest person in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course. Mm-hmm. But no, his use continued to where we, with the help of addiction counselor, with the help of family support, with the help of, Rhonda, who I've become really close friends, and another parent who had a similar situation, but her son was in recovery. She's like, "You've got to, providing him a place, to live when he's still putting needles in his arm." And so we had to make a really hard decision, because we tried everything we knew, like rehabs, IOP, healing transitions, Oxford houses, everything we knew.
You're doing the things, showing that you're all into it and getting support.
Right.
She's like, "Okay, I'll quit drinking with you."
Yeah.
Like, that's what it takes. And behind her back, drinking, doing whatever. She'd find out. She'd be like, "Well,
yeah,
I'm doing all these things."
Right. Yeah. So we, and then that became for me, I've always had a strong faith, but I'll absolutely tell you through this, my faith and my relationship, with the Lord grew much stronger, because I myself was spiraling down. And the day that I saw, my son walking down the road, he was given a choice to get some clothes and together, and something happened, and just ugly, and I've been called every single name. Then Jimmy's, my husband, is like, "Oh, you lost that chance.
Yep.
You need to leave now." And the worst memory that I can still see was just far then walking down the street without my clothes on the back. And I spiraled. I struggle myself with anxiety and depression, and that began for me a very dark time for me of not knowing where my son was, living in constant fear.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget. I had been trying to keep in touch with. We got my 360, trying to follow him, and I became truly addicted to my phone because of where is he? I mean, it was trying to keep in touch with some of the good friends that I knew that he might be reaching out to. And there was a friend of his, a girl that had been a good friend to him, and I knew that she was a good a role model, good person to be around, but she'd also distanced herself. So I thought, well, maybe they kept in touch. So I remember going out, and you can't see directly in our front door. There's a screen there, but I saw like a silhouette of a girl. I thought she had come to like say hey to me. And as soon as I open up the door, my son jumps out because he wasn't answering the door at this time. It for a long time had gone on, and it shocked me so and put me in. And I remember slamming the door and screaming for my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And because I knew he was still using.
Yeah.
And I remember going to the bathroom and curling up in a fetal position and just hyperventilating, just so upset. And I could hear my husband being called every name under the sun and yelling and, I hate you and all of that. And I had that, it's just the brunt of it. Yeah. And for me, that I lived in constant fear, but that particular incident was a turning point for me because I went from hyperventilating on the floor and literally yelling out, God, help me. How do I get? And I literally it felt like a blanket that started from my head all the way to my toes. And I went from hyperventilating 2 seconds later, could be able to talk like this. It's like, not that I ever have heard an audible voice, but the piece of like, I've got Carson. And that was a pivotal moment for me because that is when I learned to let go and let God. That old saying, but it
no, it's very true. Yeah, 100%.
And that's when no parent is ever going to be okay with a police officer being at the door saying that they've lost their child. Like no parent's ever going to be. But I accepted. Whereas I didn't accept before, was fighting it, lived in fear constantly. It was that where I accepted that if that is what in God for me, in my faith, God's will, then I need to accept that. But I know that we've done every possible thing that we could do. And unfortunately, his behavior led us to this point because you can't use needles and live in this home. You cannot do it. And you just continue to do it. So then at that point, I truly started to work on myself. And I had to block myself from my phone. I had to do like, what is going to get me in a place where I'm better? Like I can't, even if he wanted help, I can't help him.
Yeah.
Condition.
You have to be selfish.
Right. Yeah. And so one thing that my husband and that I wasn't really willing to do, that some suggestions in family support group was like, take away everything. And it was one thing that I was not willing to do was ever take away his phone. And I said, I will block him because I know that I need to be better about that and truly focus on myself to get myself back right. But we kept his phone because he knew he could reach out to Dad. And Dad was a stronger one, definitely supporting me through this time. And he agreed to do that. So for me, I felt better like if he wants help, like he could still reach out. Right.
Yeah.
But the abusiveness, the manipulation, the tears, the I'm sorry's, the like everything that he would have always gotten me. Like, because that's my son. I couldn't do that anymore. Because it was tearing me. I mean, it was breaking. It already broken my heart to 1,000 pieces, but it mentally was really, really affecting me. And so, so that began a turning point. And then, it was through that, I had heard about a film called Generation Bounds, a documentary about Recover High School.
Okay.
And I remember hearing about it in a family support group, and, you know, our son was probably about 19, 20 at this time. And I remember thinking, wow, well, that's pretty cool. But, you know, I can't utilize it. My son's already graduated, but I wish we had that resource because we struggled to find help.
Yeah.
You know? But once he turned 18, with the window opened a little bit more, or a lot more. But at that time, I just kind of passed off and kind of like, oh, that's really cool. Wish we had it. And then that's really all the thought I got about it.
And what was it called?
Generation Found. And you can download it off Amazon Prime, which I would recommend anybody do it. And it's like based on Houston, Texas. And it's about what a community did when they got tired of seeing kids die.
Yeah.
And so I hadn't watched it, but I'd heard about it again, family support group. And then simultaneously, it was also laid in my heart to start a Recover High School. And I thought, like, I was like, what? Like, I'm getting ready to retire after 30 years in the school system, like, in elementary school.
Yeah.
And start a high school, like, Leah, that you were going freaking crazy. I mean, I really thought I was going crazy. But the harder I fought it, the harder I couldn't get any from. It was constant. It was constant. And there was a pivotal point in that where, again, it was no audible, but it's, again, having that relationship with God, because I don't know what I would have done without that support and that love to, like, to carry me, you know, do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But I remember, you know, in that relationship of hearing, you know, and had that, you know, you learned how to let go with let go of Carson and trust me. But you're not trusting that I'm talking to you now, that I want you to serve you.
That's how.
You know, very powerful. And now I will never forget. I remember where I was standing. I remember what it was, but I still was like, okay, but I still wasn't ready, because I'm like, how do you even do it? I don't even know.
First step.
Right. So then it almost began, you know, God does have a sense of humor. And it would be almost comical I'd be thinking something. I'd look at Instagram and there'd be something there about, you know, that would be relating exactly what I was thinking. I'd be like, all right, whatever. It's like everywhere I turn, I couldn't get away from it. And this one particular night, I had worked late in my classroom. And my husband had called. It was just really me and the janitor. The janitor was on completely the other side of school. And I had that afternoon, had a phone call with Mary Ferreri, who was the founder of Arrow School of Excellence. And they're about 2.5 years ahead of us. And I had reached out to her. So I had done my research. Like, I had fully said, okay, I'll be look, Recovery High Schools. Google that, right?
I was satisfied what God was putting.
Right, exactly. It's research. We did say. And so I even reached out through Facebook Messenger, and you know, she put me in touch with a couple of people here. And like, again, I was like, you know, just give you some information. You know, you have to help somebody else, you know, come do. And that particular afternoon, she had we were talking about bylaws. And when I got off that phone call, I was so overwhelmed with, you have to do 501c3 and bylaws and things like
Oh, you said that. I was like,
right. It was so overwhelmed. Like, I'm a classroom teacher. I was completely overwhelmed. And I know I went to the bathroom and had the janitor walk by, and he absolutely would have thought I was crazy, because I was talking as loud as I am now.
Yeah.
And it was in my head, and I would just say, and I was talking like this, going, I know when I say I can't, every time I say I can't, you say, I know you can't, but I can't. And I'm like, I know you're going to say that. And I'm like, but I am overwhelmed. I'm crying.
yeah.
I'm literally upset at this point. And I'm like, I cannot do this. I cannot do this. And I'm like, and I heard it again. And I said, okay, forgive me. I'm not supposed to, you know, I know I'm not supposed to ask, and I know you don't have to prove anything to me. But you've got to give me something more. Because I can't, this is too big of a deal. I'm not asking for a flash of lightning or anything, but I'm asking you if you can give me something more to prove, like, I'm really not going crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you truly are. Like, I feel that this is what God wants me to do. And right after that, my cell phone rings or beeps, and it was my husband sending me a text and says, can you stop by and get me some Coke Zero on the way home from Food Line? So I gathered my stuff, got out of my classroom, and I'm crying all the way to Food Line, going, I am overwhelmed. I can't do this. I don't know where to start, blah, blah, blah. And people knew I was getting ready to retire. So it was very common for someone or a past parent to go, you excited about retirement? And we go, it was like the similar conversation. Yeah, yeah. What are you going to do? Go on vacation? So it was like pretty much the same conversation,
Yeah.
right? So everybody would ask. And so pulled in the parking lot of Food Line, and out comes one of my parents that I had taught her son in first grade. He was now in fifth grade. So he's getting ready to graduate.
Yeah.
And we were friends on Facebook, but like, I didn't know what she was doing. Like, we didn't really talk. We just like, and we really didn't keep in touch, but it was a friend on Facebook.
Yeah.
And she came up to me and started the same way. Are you excited about return? Yeah. I said, and she said, well, listen. And she reached out, touched me, and I'm telling you, it was an experience I will never forget. And it was almost like she was there, and she said something. She says, you have touched so many lives teaching in your 30 years, but you will change so many more when you retire. And she taught me, the way she was just a very peaceful. I looked at her and I went, I did a double take.
Yeah.
And all I said at that time was, and I said it just like this, you have no idea how much I needed to hear that. And I stopped talking. And she said, well, let me tell you something. I don't know what you're going through, but I want you to know you helped. And I was like, how?
What? Yeah.
Now, if you were friends with me on Facebook, then no one, unless you taught with me or you are Nate, no one knew it was ours. No one knew we were going with.
Yeah.
Only the way the neighbors knew is because there were police cars in the driveway, multiple occasions, or you taught with me and I was called out of my classroom because the Ojibwe police department's on the back.
Yeah.
Or Colorado Springs police department's on the back.
Yeah.
So, but no one knew because I learned early on when I did start to share, I would get I'd immediately feel the judgment.
It's the stigma.
The stigma. We ended up leaving the church where my husband and I met, actually. Leaving that church because of judgment.
That's
I felt.
especially church.
Yeah, yeah. But a good story about that too. But it does stop. So no one knew it was my son, but you could tell when I was passionate. Addiction is disease. I would post research articles on Facebook.
Okay.
I was passionate about recovery and addiction and these are people before the disease and all kinds of stuff. But no one knew it was my son. But you could tell I was passionate about this. So, so she said, I want you to know you helped me. And I said, well, how? And she said, my sister's son struggles with heroin addiction. And all of the articles that you posted, I have sent to her. And it's really helped her. And when she said that, it opened, there was a common connection, right?
Yeah.
So I said, wow, I had no idea. And I said, well, my son, it was the first time I ever told somebody who didn't really know me or worked with me or neighbor. Well, my son struggles with heroin addiction. And so then I told her about what had just happened, less than an hour before in the bathroom, what I had been feeling. And I'm like, I've never experienced anything like it. I have no idea what to do. And I said, but what you said to me tonight, and I asked, you've got to confirm. And I'm like, we haven't seen each other at all. And here you are. How am I going to make a difference? You have no idea.
That is such a just a like random voice, but like just for her to say like after you retired,
Right.
how many lives are you gonna say?
Right. And the way she just like looked at and then she said, well, you know, God speaks to people. And I went, yes, he does. So we said our goodbyes and got in the car, and literally in the smooth line, I went, I surrender. And I said,
That's
I have no idea what to do, but show me.
Mhm.
You said you can do it. Use me, but I don't even know where to start. And so understand I hadn't told this to my husband. Okay?
Jimmy's still an adult.
So he's still in the doctor.
He wants his cozy.
Right. It's cozy. So I went home and it was approaching a weekend, and I said, this weekend I want to watch a film with you. And I've never watched it, but I want to watch it together, and then I'm going to tell you why I wanted to watch it. And I sat through that entire documentary and I bawled, because all I could see with those kids on documentary was how our son would have thrived in that environment. He would have thrived. And that maybe his addiction didn't ultimately lead to heroin addiction. Maybe he would have started had he had that support, and we had that support.
But at 15, 16, 17, you're getting turned down.
Yeah.
All these places. And his addiction is just growing. You're doing push-ups outside.
Oh, yeah. And so after the film was over, I just kind of collected myself, and I said, well, the reason I wanted to watch that together was I've had an experience that I have never, ever, ever had in my life before. I had fought it for quite a while now, and I told him about some instances. I thought I was going crazy, and I told him about what had happened in the food line parking lot, and I said, without a shadow of a doubt, I'm supposed to do this. I don't know how, but I need your support. And from that minute, he gave me support. And then the next person I talked to, at this time, I was trying to think where we were in our journey. Our son was living at I think it's probably his third Oxford by this time. And so I remember picking him up and asking him if he wanted to go to church. I said, yeah. So I said, okay, I'll pick you up. We'll go to church. And then afterwards, took him home. I remember sitting in the driveway of the Oxford house, and I said, had an experience. I've talked to Dad about it, but I need your support, and here's why. I feel, God's asked me to start this recovery high school, but people are going to ask me why I'm doing this, because it's not going to make sense. Elementary school teacher, getting ready to retire, like, why are you doing this? People are going to know. Why? Are you going to be okay with me sharing our story? I can't share your specifics, but they're going to know, like, it's because of you. And from what my niece said, sure.
Automatically, and your son.
Automatically. And so, yeah, absolutely. And so so from that point forward, I went, okay, I've got the two people that, I don't want families to go through what we did. And so I remember talking about it in family support, and I talked to an addiction professional our son I worked with, who had really had a good relationship with. He would try, but again, my son wasn't ready, right? And I knew he'd actually been a part of starting Healing Transitions when it was formerly the Healing Place. So I reached out to him, and he then shared about a kind of a, not similar, but a spiritual journey he had been on, and something he had been through his addiction. So we had that common, when I shared my story, like, he didn't think I was crazy.
Yeah, actually with like 3 days.
Right. I was like, I get it. And so he goes, well, you need to serve me, and you need to have an agenda. And, I'll help you through. I mean, that is how, you could figure this out into a meeting, but like, again, I'm a classroom teacher. And so, we had gone to a different church. In fact, we're skipping around, but again, Healing Transitions, Oxford House, whatever. And I remember it was the 2017 at this time, and it was the day before Mother's Day.
Right.
And our son was in probably his third time by this time of trying healing transitions. And he said that there's this van that comes to healing transitions and takes a bunch of guys to church. You want to meet me at church tomorrow? And I'm thinking, what? Right, exactly. And I thought, sure. And so we met him at church. It was during church service at Seven Marks Church now. And that experience with the church, there's some things that happened there too that were just like, I can't get away. Like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And it still is continuing to be our church where we go to. They've been supportive from the very beginning. And so when all this came about, shared with one of the pastors. And so we had our first meeting in a small room in the back of the church. And there was a team of 7 of us that consisted of myself, my husband, and the youth pastor, and a couple of members of our family support team, and the addiction professional. And we all sat around a round table and went, well, we want to start at recovery high school. How do we do that? And we made a plan, and the rest was was history. When we started doing generation count screenings, because we were able to get a classroom edition, which was 50 minutes instead of the hour and a half. And thought, well, what better way? I can't explain what recovery high school is.
Yeah.
I'm willing to lead to start this, but how do you explain what recovery high school is? So if that film was impactful to me, why don't we just show it?
Mm-hmm.
And so we started doing screenings of Generation Found, and afterwards we would have a panel. We would have, myself, usually a couple of addiction professionals on there to, field questions, and then a representative of that church of like, why, from the standpoint of why did you think it was important to do a Generation Found screening in your church? And that's how we started to build a team. And I would say, ask questions. I'm like, this is coming, and this is my experience. And we need people.
Yeah.
We need people. This is what we're working on. We need it, people working on a curriculum. There's others. We are working on marketing, fundraising. Like, we're literally building something from scratch.
Starting.
So start up. So who wants to help? And that's how we built our team. And so we started meeting at church on the first Monday of every month. And then, okay, as we go along, well, we got to be a nonprofit, right? And so how do you do that? Well, nonprofit has a board. So like our first board was comprised of people who's coming regularly to meetings. Like, that was our first board, and it went from there. And then we progressed, and the plan was to open in August of 2020. We had worked with a location that we thought this is where we're going to be, and that ended up falling through. And we found this church in January of 2020, and they were very open to what we were doing and what was coming. And so we started to get inspections. Well, can we have a school here? What inspections do we need? And started to set all that up. And then, what happens? Then here comes COVID.
Yep.
Shut everything down. And so then,
talk about the sense that you putting this all on your heart and be like, yeah,
right,
skirt ball boy.
Right. So what do we do now? So needless to say, like, we lost our team because we couldn't meet. And like, we were working on like lots of like can things, but we needed a team together. So it got down to the board. And so what can we do during COVID to at least keep this moving forward? And so we started working like a strategic operating plan. And what's our handbook going to look like? Things that we could like work paper, and didn't have to meet. And then we'd have Zoom meetings. And so we did the best that we can. So obviously we didn't open up in August of 2020, but when things started to open back up again, we started doing, the inspections. But of course, everybody's behind. So waiting on inspections to come. So fast forward, got through all of that, and worked really, really hard to like, we got to get this school open. And so June of 21, we had a ribbon cutting ceremony.
Right.
We had news media, and we're over it.
Yeah.
We're a couple of months. We're going to post our websites, up. We're going to post our, enrollment, start spreading the word. And from just that post, we had several families reach out.
Wow.
And did tours.
Mm-hmm.
And we opened August of 21 with 2 students.
Wow.
And the rest is, and up to this point, we've served almost 30 students.
30 students. And when you have students come in, what are the ages of the students that typically come?
So our age range is 13 and 21.
Okay.
And we did that purposely. If you think of, 18-year-old, in and out of rehab, but just can't get to school. So let's give them extra time. But we also would enroll each student individually. So, for example, we're not going to put a 21-year-old male, 13-year-old. Like, we got to, everybody's on an individual basis, And so, but we wanted to have the age range because, kids are still young adults. Are still struggling beyond the age of 18. And so, but our first 2 students were, one was 17 and one was 18.
Nice.
And we've had 4 graduates who've actually continued to work in recovery and achieve their high school diploma. We're scheduled, if everything keeps going forward, to have 4 more graduates this June.
That's amazing.
So that have a high school diploma and have college credit, as we have dual enrollment with Wake Tech. So we, through the years, Dr. Ross, president of Wake Tech, has been on our board of directors. And we have a great relationship with that, one of our many community partners. So our kids earn college credit at the same time they're also getting high school credit, but in an environment that supports recovery, and they're around peers that get them, they're around staff that get them. And when you hear from students that say, this is the first school I've ever felt loved or accepted, or, without to be mad, be dead, those are some really powerful things to hear. And so.
And then you also do, throughout the year, go out different activities and different things like that.
Yeah. We change, an important part of recovery is exercise, So we work with a local gym, CrossFit gym,
right,
who's part of a larger organization called Phoenix CrossFit, where the coaches for recovery. So many of our gym classes have been like recovery pep talks prior to or after. But another part of recovery is service learning. Learning that there's someone else besides yourself.
Should that be hard thing, right?
Right. So on Wednesday, we have what we call Wednesday Wellness. And so we do work with a variety of organizations where we do service learning. They're learning something, they're being around positive role models. But at the same time, while we're there, then we're also giving back. So, for example, every year we've always opened, it's been a popular thing, Bit of Pleasure Work School. So we start our year off that way, and kids get input. We always evaluate our program, and that's been a big thing, so we keep doing it. So it starts our year off, and we go, and the kids, when we split the group, some are learning to ride, and some are doing groundwork, and then we'll switch. But while we're there, they're cleaning stalls and moving belt hay and cleaning water buckets. But we keep track of those in volunteer hours. So if the student chooses to continue working in program of recovery and graduate from here and they choose to go to college, then it looks really good to have a variety of community partners that you've earned volunteer hours that you've served in these areas. And then with that, you're sharing your recovery story of the challenges that you have overcome and what you've been about and the resilience that you've shown. What better way to it's hard enough being a teenager, but teenage recovery.
I can imagine.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool thing.
And then, so, how do you get your funding? And then from there, what would you say, just for anybody listening, how could they help out if they felt like that, or to help out? How can they do that?
So 30% of our operating budget is tuition. I wish it were free. Hopefully one day it will be, but, building something from ground up, state and federal funding or not. Because it's time, right? So 30% of our operating budget is tuition, but we are a North Carolina Opportunity Scholarship School.
Okay.
So we do accept students who have qualified for that funding. And then on top of that, we also have financial aid available, but that's limited. So we have full scholarships for some of our students, and we've got partial scholarships. And we decide that based on a third-party company looks at financial documents, and they make a recommendation to the board. So the board is not directly involved in making any of that decisions. So they work with that third-party company. So based on what the family turned down. This is what they can afford. So we never want finances to be a barrier. But unfortunately, like currently right now, as far as our personal WMA's financial aid is, we're frozen. Like this, we exhausted it for this year. So that's where fundraising events help kind of fuel that in our operating budget. We have 3 fundraising events, main fundraising events a year. We usually start out our year with a golf tournament in April, but this year, our gala normally is in November, but because of the catastrophe that Western Carolina went through, we postponed from November to February 22nd. So this year, our Gala for Recovery is February 22nd at the University Club at North Carolina State University. We're having Daryl Strawberry for those sports lovers in there. That, multiple World Series championships, but he struggled with addiction. He has a powerful story of recovery and redemption. So he's going to be our keynote speaker.
That's awesome.
Renee Shu, WRAL TV, is going to be our MC. So it should be a really, really, really nice evening. But fundraising event, you'll hear from one of our students, one of our parents to kind of share their journey through finding recovery and experience with WMA. Then in April 30th, we have our golf tournament at Lightville Golf Course. And then in September, we have our annual Be the Light 5K run in September. So those are our 3 main fundraising events. So we're making up 70%. And so tradition 70% is through our fundraising events, through private donations, some grants, to fuel the rest of the funding. So funding is always needed. I mean, we're continually trying to, get federal and state funding, and we're excited that we were one of 13 organizations that is able to get some of the opioid settlement money. And so we're not using it directly for the school because, again, how do we serve more youth? So we're starting what we call an APG, or an alternative peer group. So if you're going to think of like an after-school type care program where there's a clinical staff, there's pro-social activities, there's support for not only the adolescents, but also the families. We'll be doing that 2 nights a week. We're going to start with 2 nights a week.
Yeah.
So that's coming. We're in the process of signing contracts with the state. So, but that's completely separate from the school. School's not directly going to get funding from that, but our 501c3 nonprofit is Wake Monarch. So like Wake Monarch Academy is a DBA or doing business as under Wake Monarch. The APG will be another DBA under Monarch. Mm-hmm. So we'll be separate organizations, but working under the umbrella of Wake Monarch. Right. So it'll be a way, and it'll be free. So it'll be a way to serve more youth. So I'm going to go back to the Generation Balance Rate. Our Academy is a high school, recovery high school is the largest recovery high school in the United States. That is mentioned, or not mentioned, more than mentioned, kind of the stories around that high school. 4 APGs feed into that one high school. So all these kids are going to traditional schools during the day.
Yeah.
But then they're going to the APG in the afternoon when they get that support, recovery support, and support for the family. So, but some also go to the recovery high school. So in your perfect scenario for kid in recovery is recovery high school during the day for that support, then the APG in the afternoon, and then activities also on the weekend. So they're surrounded constantly by people in recovery and peers in recovery. Yeah. Those peers they're gonna listen to a peer versus they're gonna listen to a parent. Adult, but
I can find that out tonight, for sure.
Yeah, they're gonna listen to them. So that's why recovery's best in the community, and so building that community. So we're excited about that. So it's like, again, building something for ground up, from. But we'll have funding for that. So we're very blessed that at least that part of the nonprofit will have funding to get off the ground and to get support staff to and offer it to individuals, adolescents, 13 to 21, family support in it, and it be free. So that at least we can help those kids and then continue working on funding, because a lot of your larger grants or funding is like, how many people can we serve? I mean, every high schools are small. They're not meant to be large high schools with hundreds of kids. You can't. So your average enrollment amongst all 42 recovery high schools is like 25 to 30 students.
Right.
So when you think of, big time funding, like, well, I could do this and have 25 kids, but I can serve 100 kids over here.
That's where the funding's going to go.
Right. So we're continuing to work because, again, opportunities like this, I'm going to have another speaking engagement, this evening of awareness that like this works. Like we're saving lives. These kids need extra help. That the more awareness things that we do, that hopefully will get the attention that we help another area start recovery high school. Like certainly if an elementary school teacher at least can be obedient to get a team together, I mean, it's absolutely taking a team and give all, glory to God to be where we are now. But encourage, Johnson County to have a recovery high school, Durham, or Wake Forest. I mean, doesn't have another county that.
I know Franklin County.
Right, exactly. That then deciding to kind of, okay, yes, these schools are small and specialized, but look what they're doing. So then let's get funding to them. So we got that. So we're continuing to work on awareness opportunities and trying to find other means that the school itself can be sustainable to get opportunities like funding, like AVG.
Yeah, just like you said, if you trusted God all this way, there's no reason to not trust Him.
Right.
So, and I think you're doing absolutely amazing things here, absolutely great things. I feel blessed and honored that you sit down and take the time to speak to me.
I appreciate you asking.
Yeah, no, 100%. I went, this is the second one I've done so far, so you're the second one. I'm a liar. But doing absolutely amazing things, and I'll link everything that you talked about.
Awesome.
Some links.
Okay.
Put it in the description. I'll do that.
That'll be awesome.
Once again, thank you so much for being open book and just kind of share your personal story, but also the Wake Monarch story as well. That's super awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.